Hello and welcome. Today's video is going to be about gaslighting. So gaslighting, a little history on the term gaslighting. It's from a movie that was made in 1944. I actually saw this movie not too entirely long ago. It's an older film. It's about a man who slowly and systematically over time convinces his partner that she's going crazy. Things start to go missing. Events happen that she has no recollection of ever happening. She has strange sensory experiences, all while being told by her partner that these are things that she's imagining and aren't actually reality. And the plot of the movie is he's trying to convince her and the people around her that she's insane to be able to have her committed so he can steal some jewels from her. So the modern term for gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation that's often used by narcissists and sociopaths and other harmful, toxic people in order to distort the reality of their victim. In other words, it's a form of psychological abuse in which the victim is made to believe that their perception of a situation or their feelings around a situation are invalid, like they aren't real. Often it causes the victim to feel a lot of confusion, and due to this confusion, they tend to align their own ideas with the ideas of the abuser. A big ultimate goal of gaslighting is to cause what we call cognitive dissonance. And what cognitive dissonance means is that you have basically two contradictory beliefs going on at the same time. Like an example of cognitive dissonance with gaslighting would be like, okay, like this person loves me, but I also feel a lot of pain when I'm with this person. But they love me, but I also feel a lot of pain. It's kind of a push-pull situation in which you kind of feel two different opposing ideas at once. And gaslighting is something that is really gradual. It's done slowly over time. Like it's not one big large event. It's little incidences that kind of add up over time, and over time they really diminish someone's ability to trust themselves. Like it really tends to attack your sense of trust and like really what's going on in the situation. It causes you to question what you know to believe is true. However, you're having someone tell you that it isn't true. That's really hard. It brainwashes you over time. It's a tactic that's often used by a lot of cult leaders in order to control their following. Gaslighter kind of sets themselves up to be this all-knowing being, and you need to trust what I'm saying. You are confused, you don't know what you're saying, so therefore you need to trust me only. And over time, it causes the victim to lose their sense of self. They don't know what's going on anymore. Then you are only left to trust the abuser because you've been led to believe that all your viewpoints and feelings and thoughts are invalid. So what are some signs that we can spot when we know that someone's trying to gaslight us? So number one are things that kind of sound like you are being overly sensitive, or you are overreacting, or you are being irrational. Thoughts of that nature are statements that are used by people that gaslight others. It's an attack on your emotional state. A situation happens that it is perfectly valid for you to have an emotional reaction to, and the person is basically telling you that you are not entitled or allowed to have an emotional reaction in this experience. Another thing that gaslighters often do is they make everything your fault. They're unable to take any ownership. Everything is always your fault. And I use the word always there on purpose because literally always is your fault. It is never their fault. It is always yours. And I mean everything. It could be raining and they will somehow find a way to make it your fault. Psychological manipulators are unable to take even partial ownership in a situation. It is always, always on you. Always. Another sign is that their actions and their words often fail to match up. So an example could be they tell you that you're beautiful, but then they get you a gym membership so you can lose that extra 10 pounds. They think your friends and family are so great, yet there's always an excuse to why you shouldn't visit them or be around them. Another thing gaslighters do is they straight up deny reality. That never happened. I never said that. And then sometimes this can be really, really sneaky. They can say things like, oh, I'm sorry it came out that way. That wasn't how I meant it. This is actually how I meant it. So it can kind of sound like they're taking partial ownership. However, not really. What I actually meant was this. I'm sorry you got confused. That would be an example of a gaslighting statement. Another sign is a false display of concern. They might make statements like, I'm really worried about you. You haven't been yourself lately. I'm concerned. Let me help you. Another thing they tend to do is they tend to minimize situations. That wasn't that big of a deal. I'm really sorry that I forgot our anniversary, but I remembered your birthday. Again, but statements. But statements are not good. At least I didn't do this. And minimizing, again, can be really sneaky. It can seem like they're taking some ownership, however, not really. So what can you do? How can we handle gaslighters? The best thing you could do is to leave. Unfortunately, people that participate in psychological manipulation, narcissists, sociopaths, people like that, they don't tend to ever change. A hallmark of narcissism and sociopaths, they don't have the ability to ever see themselves as a problem. It's always somebody else. Someone else is always a problem, it's never them. And to really make changes, you have to be able to acknowledge that there are changes that need to be made, and these types of people, unfortunately, don't usually see that. So these behaviors don't usually tend to change. So the best way to get out of a situation where you're being consistently gaslighted, or where you're being gaslighted at all, is to leave. However, this is not always easy or feasible. There's a lot of reasons why someone might not be able to leave an abusive situation. And even when they are able to leave an abusive situation, is this someone that you have to co-parent with? So you still have to communicate with them on a regular basis. Is this someone in your family? Is it your parent? Is it a sibling? Is it someone you work with, like a narcissistic boss or a coworker? There could be a lot of reasons why you might still have to interact with these relatively toxic people, and you might continually be gaslighted. So what are some things that you can do to help with that? Biggest way to handle manipulative people in general is to set boundaries. And I've said it in a few of my other videos with boundaries that it's best when they're set earlier on, because boundaries tend to set the course of a relationship. However, later is better than never, because often toxic and narcissistic people don't introduce themselves as being toxic and narcissistic. Like, we learn this over time when we start to see the psychological damage to our mental health that is done by continually interacting with these people and them being manipulative. So setting boundaries with these people it's quintessential to being able to handle them. And know that when you start to set boundaries with someone who is a narcissist or a sociopath or toxic, they're going to have a profoundly negative reaction. They are not going to do well with you trying to establish boundaries, especially if they got so used to crossing them. Good ways to set boundaries is knowing what you're going to tolerate and what you're not going to tolerate. Being straight up, I am not going to tolerate this. We are not having this conversation. Removing yourself from the situation, even if it means actually like physically getting up and walking away. And if you're not able to do that, using very minimal responses. There is a term for this called gray rock, and I actually want to do another video solely on how to be gray rock. But gray rock, in the short version, is being very, very boring, being very, very bland and boring, not having a strong emotional reaction to anything that the person may say. Very little responses, short responses. Okay. Someone says something to you, okay. Being just very, very to the point, and then only talking about the facts. Trying to leave emotion out of it completely and only basing your responses on factual information. And the idea of being gray rock is that people like narcissists, toxic, psychological, abusive people, they feed off of your emotions. They're often I call them emotional vampires. They feed off of your emotional reaction. So if you're really bland and boring, they're not going to get that emotional reaction that they're craving. So they're less likely to try to engage in some of the more manipulative. Not that they're not going to try, because they probably definitely will, and they might have a very negative reaction when they're not getting what they need from you anymore. However, you're kind of reinforcing those boundaries that you're not going to accept this type of treatment, it isn't going to be tolerated anymore, you're not going to give them that emotional reaction. Gaslighting is very, very damaging to people that have been through it. It can take a long time to handle the effects of gaslighting. It's absolutely damaging to your mental health. It's absolutely damaging to your self-esteem and your feelings of self-worth. So what are some ways that you can cope after you have been gaslighted? You need to heal, and this is going to take time. It is going to take time to heal from the effects of gaslighting, especially if it's been something that's gone on for a long time. You need to go through that healing process, and that in itself might not be like a solution, but I'm going to also share some ways that you can kind of help the process of healing. So what are some things that you can do to help yourself heal? The first thing you can do is to try to surround yourself with healthy people. If there are people in your life that are on your side, they're a positive influence in your life, they build you up, try to surround yourself as much as possible with those types of people. When you've spent so much time being captive of an abuser and isolated, and you're just continuing to get that negative influences in your life, it's really important to counteract that as much as you can with positive influence. So try to find a healthy group of people. If you have people in your life that are healthy for you and good for you, they know what you've gone through, surround yourself as much as you can with people like that. Another thing you can do is to allow yourself to feel emotions. Feel the emotions that you're actually feeling, and then learning how to accept them as well. Even the ones that aren't so fun. Being honest with how you're actually feeling in the moment, and then being like, okay, I'm feeling really anxious right now. This is how I'm feeling right now, and I acknowledge and I accept that I am anxious. That'll teach you how to recognize your emotional cues, and then also how to gain more power over your emotions. When you spend a really long time being told how to feel, it's hard to know how you're actually feeling because someone else is telling you how to feel. And how are we supposed to know how we're feeling when we've been told time and time again how we're supposed to feel in certain situations? So practicing accepting feeling emotions is a big step in the healing process for someone who's gone through gaslighting and psychological manipulation. Another thing you can do is to repeat the facts of a situation to yourself. Write it down. Keep it in your journal. Write as much detail as possible. Write everything that happened, small details, how you were feeling, and then when necessary, read it back to yourself. Another thing you can do when you find yourself feeling conflicted and confused is a thought challenge. And this is checking the facts of a situation. What is the evidence for this? How do I know that this is what actually happened? What are the facts? Checking those facts and looking at the actual actions, not just the words that have been spoken. What are the actions? What supports this? What doesn't support this? Does it match up? What was the behavior? If someone's telling me that they love me, but yet they're yelling angry insults at me, that doesn't match up. Another thing you can do is to honor your needs. What is it that you need right now? You can start with your basic needs. Like, are you hungry? Are you tired? Do you need to sleep right now? What is it that you need to do for yourself in this moment? Meeting your basic needs is great self-care, and it will also help you start to trust yourself again. The next thing, if you find yourself questioning what is real, give yourself a break. Give yourself that self-validation that you've been through a lot and you need time to process and deal with this. And that's okay. If you're having a hard time knowing what is real and what isn't real, give yourself that break that you need. You went through something really, really hard, and it's going to take time for that to come back again. That self-trust is going to take time to be reestablished. Another tip is to start making your own decisions. And this is going to start out really basic, like deciding what you want to eat. Sometimes even deciding what you want to wear that day. Or what type of music do you want to listen to in the car. Making those little decisions will help add up to bigger decisions later on. And you start to kind of build that process of self-trust. The last tip is to seek therapy. Gaslighting is terrible. Anyone that has ever been gaslighted could probably attest to that. It is one of the worst things you can do to someone, and it literally makes you feel like you're going crazy. And it can take the support of another person that, might be a professional in this field to be able to help you through that literal maze that's going on in your mind. So if you need to seek the help of a therapist, someone that specializes in domestic violence and relationships, make that phone call and do that. It is so important, and you will be so happy that you did. Well, that's what I've got for you today, and I hope this video is really, really helpful. If you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up. Help promote this channel, help promote this information. It is really, really important. If this is the type of content that you like, subscribe to this channel. I post new videos every week. My name is Jenna. I'm a licensed therapist. If you have any questions, leave them below, and I will see you next time. Bye.